All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our first work readiness workshop. We're so excited to have you today. Keep an eye on the chat. At the end, we're going to be posting an evaluation so you can tell us what you think, give us some feedback, and also get links to our other upcoming events because this is the first of several that we're going to be offering for you this semester. But before I speak too much, I wanted to introduce our other CE counselors that are here with us. We have got Maricela and Antonio here who helped plan this event as well. If you haven't met with them yet, they're available to you as CE counselors. And then of course we have our speaker today. So let me go ahead and read our speaker's bio so you can get a brief introduction. So Sean has been in HR, more specifically talent acquisition, for 20 plus years. He's worked with reputable organizations as USC, World Vision International, Disney, NBC Universal, and Yahoo. Recently, he got his MS HRM. He loves to cook, playing guitar, hanging out with people, socially distant, of course, during this time, and rooting for his favorite sports team. He has a passion for helping candidates achieve greatness. And he has lots of great information for us today. We are going to have some time for questions at the end, so stick around for the whole thing. And without further ado, I will pass it off to our lovely speaker, Sean Park.
Thank you, Shelby, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you all. When I saw this opportunity to speak to the GCC students, I jumped at the opportunity because I have a passion, as Shelby alluded to in my bio, to help people out. And so for the sake of this, talk today, I'm going to be turning off my, my video, so just bear with me. Okay, so as far as an agenda is concerned, what we're going to be talking about is an intro. Actually, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, all right. So we did the intros. And so the first thing we're going to be talking about is the job search, how you could go from good to great. Next, we're going to be talking about what do employers look for in a resume, as well as what are some common resume and cover letter pitfalls. Pitfalls meaning like some mistakes that that candidates make in their cover letter or their resume. Some closing advice and an opportunity to do a little Q&A. So as Shelby alluded to earlier, here are some of the companies that I've worked at in the past. So as you can see, I've worked in legal, I've worked in entertainment, .coms, nonprofits, and more recently, currently I'm at the University of Southern California, and I'm sure that for some of you, that's one of your schools that you want to apply to once you graduate. So if you have any questions about that, getting into USC or anything like that, I could definitely point you to some of my colleagues on campus that can help out with those types of questions. But if there are any specific ones about, let's say the campus life or anything like that, I could definitely provide those answers as well. Okay. So with that, we'll jump into our first topic. So having your job search go from good to great. Okay, and I know that this picture is kind of funny. At least it is for me, because I'm definitely like the round guy on the left side, especially in light of COVID. There's not much opportunity to go to the gym or go outside because of all these just different restrictions. And so yeah, hopefully once we get a little bit more open and a lot more people get vaccinated, I'm sure that a lot of people will start to look like the guy on the right as the guy on the left. So, right. So with that, the first bullet being American Idol. So the reason why I put that is because, as you know, with reality shows like American Idol and The Voice and Masked Singer and all these other different ones, you only get like a 5 to 10, maybe 15-second audition to really showcase your skills. And so what you want to do with your resume and your cover letter is to really accentuate the positives that you have. Sure, anybody can type, 65 to 70 to 80 words a minute. Anybody can use Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint and Word. But what you really want to do is really showcase, some of the extra other things that I'll be talking about a little bit later on. So you only have those types of really short times to really make a big impact. So you want to like hit in between the eyes and really make the reader of your documents kind of realize, oh wow, John is or Jane is a good candidate. We need to bring them on for a phone screen or a phone interview or a Zoom interview. Okay. So next, doing online research for jobs and companies. I know that with COVID, we're not really having these types of job fairs, but when you guys do have job fairs and you go to, let's say, a table, one of the first questions you should not ask is, oh, so what do you guys do? Or what kind of jobs do you guys have? That's not the first. I mean, if I got $1 for every single time, that happened to me, yeah, I would not be doing this type of work. So what you want to do is really online research, all the different organizations that are there, all the different jobs that are available, so that once you get to that front of the line with the recruiter, you can say, hi, Mr. Smith, or hi, Miss Doe. I did some research on your website, and and you print out the job description. Oh, here's, let's say a financial analyst position or a database administrator position that I'm really interested in. Can you talk a little bit more about it? So then that way, it differentiates you from the rest of your peers because you actually did the work ahead of time. And so another thing with online research is, let's just say if you were to do an interview, one of the last questions the interviewer will ask you, oh, so Ms. Smith or Mr. Jones, do you have any questions for us? What I don't want, what I hope for you folks is that it's not a situation where you're like, oh no, I don't have any questions, because that shows little to no interest in the position. You're just doing the interview just to waste time. And so by doing the types of questions, if you could go to the internet or go to the GCC Career Center, I'm sure that they have books and articles about the right questions to ask. And so by asking the right questions or maybe some thought-provoking questions to the interviewer, that will kind of differentiate yourself as well. Okay, next. So a specific cover letter and resume for each position you're applying to. So unfortunately, a job search is a job in of itself, and there are going to be peaks and valleys at times. And so it's kind of like, I love to use the analogy of a lumberjack. A lumberjack, wearing the flannel and wearing the beanie. Okay, you're ready to go, but then you need your axe, right? So you need to kind of sharpen it, right? You start cutting that tree, right? But then after a while you get tired, so you need to take a rest. You need to cut the tree at different angles. You need to do a lot of different things. You need to have a support group, which I'll talk about later, to cheer you on and say, hey, you could do it, you could do it, because there are going to be times where you're going to get that interview at that stellar company you want to work for, and then you get that email saying, oh, after much consideration, we've gone with other candidates. So you need to have that kind of support group to say, hey, you know what? It's okay, just keep on going. At least with my position at USC, it wasn't the first iteration or the first application that I submitted that I got the proverbial thumbs up, you've been hired. So rest assured that I'm sure that Shelby and the rest of the group at GCC could probably tell you so many stories of different positions that they've applied to at different organizations. But then once they got their dream job, wherever that may be, I mean, they were stoked, right? So that's something that you probably want to take into consideration. Okay, relevant work experience and passions. So relevant work experience is kind of self-explanatory, but if there are any passions that you have, like let's say if you're applying for a teaching job, if you've done like, let's say, you worked after school to help, tutor kids, or if you're in a situation where you love marketing or, sales, if you're passionate about, developing relationships with people. I mean, so there's a lot of different things you could really showcase in your resume that not necessarily is a job in a job description, or you did, I worked at, let's say, Pizza Hut making pizzas, or I worked at McDonald's and I flipped burgers. Well, that's great, but what you want to do is really accentuate all the different things that are transferable to a position, the position you're applying for. So. Oh, grammar and punctuation. This is a big doozy for me because one thing that I would want to stress is the lovely people at GCC, whether it be Shelby or the folks, um, the other folks that are on this call, as well as your career center. They're in this higher ed industry, not because of the big pay, but because it's very gratifying. So I really want to plug their services to you guys. And so if you have a situation where you have a resume that you want looked at, just make an appointment with any one of those folks. And I'm sure that they will be happy to help you out. And so with the grammar and punctuation portion, it's definitely important to know um, that you got to keep consistency. What example of this is you have um, the present tense in your current position, which is fine, but then you maintain that throughout the whole resume. Because the reason why that's wrong is because the previous positions should be past tense because you're no longer doing it. So a lot of the words should be like the verbs should be ed presence or end with ed, whereas the current positions have a current verb tense. So putting in hobbies, interests, and volunteer work. So as a recruiter, what I usually do is like when I first look at a resume is to look for these types of things. So if I notice that, I mean, for all the people in the room that are not, sports fans, let's just say if I knew that somebody lived in Portugal or lived in Argentina for a couple of years, or in those two. Oh, so do you like soccer? Do you like Messi? Do you like, Ronaldo? Or if they grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or are you a Packers fan? Or if you put in like you have an interest in cooking. Oh, so, what are your favorite dishes that you like to cook? The reason why I do that is because that's a way to kind of break the ice, because I know that for a lot of you folks, once you're in an interview like kind of mode, you got kind of tense up and then like, oh my gosh, like I have an interview with USC, or I have an interview with Disney, or I have an interview with Amazon. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So what that does is it tries to, break the ice, because if you start talking about yourself, what I'm trying to do is just try to divert you from the kind of stress of the interview. And so I find that, once I do start breaking the ice, that, people are a little bit more loose and a little bit prone to just speak freely about themselves. And then finally, the LinkedIn profile. The LinkedIn profile is so important because a lot of organizations like USC, like Amazon, like Google and Disney and all these other great organizations, they're looking for people count every day. And so one way to kind of showcase yourself is to have a LinkedIn profile. And that's another thing that you could probably talk to some of the counselors at GCC about, to really look at a profile and say, okay, well, this is what I want to showcase. And one thing that get asked a lot is, okay, how does a profile differ from the resume? As far as the profile is concerned, it should encapsulate everything that you have, but then the resume should be more showcased about stuff that's more specific to the role that you're applying to. Okay. All right, any questions?
Looks like none so far.
Okay, well, I guess people have gone to sleep, or they're so exciting. But okay, well, all right, with that.
They're probably frantically taking notes and writing all this down.
Ah, yes. Okay, understood.
Sorry. Will these PDFs be online?
I'm sorry.
Will these PDFs like be distributed to us?
Yeah, that's the thing I would talk to Shelby about, and then she'll kind of communicate it out to you guys.
Yeah, you can email and request it from me.
Okay.
Great question.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is, okay, so what do employers really look for? And so here are some of the things that, as an employer myself, what I look for in resumes for entry-level folks is entry-level work and internships. So again, I will beat this horse until the cows come home. But as far as the internships are concerned, I'm sure that GCCA's Career Center has a lot of different, like has books or, has web links to different internship opportunities. And so that's something that I would really, highly suggest is to really seek out those opportunities. And also, in addition to that, is to network as much as possible. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But networking is like kind of like a two-pronged approach. You need to do what you need to do, but then you can also have other people help you out as well. And next is transferable skills. And so, as I alluded to earlier, some of you folks, might have had positions that are totally not relevant to the position you're applying to or the subject matter in which you're in school for, but I'm sure that there are some transferable skills that could translate to a sales or marketing position or an position in entertainment or position in service. So what you want to do is just think about just take your hat off as a student and put on the hat of a hiring manager. Now, if you're a hiring manager for a, let's say, a entry level, let's say, sales and marketing position or something like that, think about some of the traits that you would want them to have. And if you have any kind of trouble with that, then yeah, just talk to, maybe somebody that's in the industry that you might know, or a friend of a friend, or a colleague, or a relative or something like that, because the more people that know it, I'm sure that they will want to help you as well. A growth mindset. So this is something that I would definitely highly suggest for all of you. And what I mean by a growth mindset is for you folks to continually reading, continually just networking, continually looking at blogs or listening to podcasts, or just having that kind of growth mindset, because as you well know, the world is changing at a light speed type of pace. And so in order for you guys to be competitive with everybody else, or even better than everybody else, is to really think ahead and to say, yeah, these are the podcasts I listen to. And that could be something else that you could put on your resume, is the podcast you're listening to, or your some of the events that you've attended, stuff like that. So that way it'll showcase to the reader of your resume, oh wow, John Smith really has really wants to make a betterment of himself, or Jane really wants to make a betterment of herself. So yeah. And then problem solving skills. So that's another thing that you want to maybe put as a bullet or two in any of your positions. Problem solving skills, because what you don't want to do in a position is you have a problem, in your job. What you don't want to do is just go to your boss and say, dump it on his or her table and say, okay, you deal with it. What you want to do is have, okay, here's a problem, John or Jane's manager. But here are some ideas of solutions. So then that way it shows your boss or your future bosses to say, okay, well, this my direct report has took the time to think things through and to really give some good suggestions. And even if they're not really good suggestions, I'm hoping that these are the type of people that will say, okay, well, I really like your idea, but here's how I would do it too. So that way it's more collaborative. It's not like, okay, just dumping things on your boss's desk and hoping that he or she will take care of it. Okay, and attention to detail, especially I know that some of you guys want to go into accounting or data research or things like that. And so one of the things I really want to implore you guys to do is to really work on your attention to detail, because with accounting, one wrong decimal point, or one wrong if a 6 is supposed to be 7 or something like that, could really have financial impacts down the road. So what you want to do is just maybe double and triple and quadruple check your work as much as possible. So that's something that I would definitely want to showcase as well. Okay, any questions?
Yes, we did have one, and it's basically asking about when there's online job applications, when you're in that application phase, sometimes there's a question that asks you, do you have a disability? And the question is, should I disclose that disability on that online application?
Oh, wow. Starting off with some easy questions. To be quite honest, I mean, I'm of a person that's honest, that's, preaches on, not preaches, but, has honesty as one of the things I try to embody. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say yes, I would put that in. Um, because what you don't want to happen is if you put no and you get hired, and then let's just say by some happenstance that the employer finds out that you do have a disability, then that could be grounds for termination right there, then and there. And so that might not be the best answer that you might want to hear, but it's the honest one. And yeah, what I don't want you guys to do is to get this dream job at Amazon or get this dream job at Disney or wherever you want to work at. That's your dream job, and only to find out later that Shelby gets an email. Oh, Shelby, yeah, I'm no longer at this great company. And she'll ask why, and then you'll let her know that, oh yeah, I lied on my application. And so yeah, that's something that I would kind of stress. But yeah, I mean, what I say or what Shelby says or what anybody else says on this call, is just take with a grain of salt. I mean, you guys, are grown adults. You guys, can make decisions for yourselves. But just for you asked the question of me, and my answer would be just to be as honest as possible. So, great question.
Thanks, Sean. And the only other thing I'd want to just add to that is feel free to consult, especially with our center here on campus that you're probably already working with, because they can make sure you really know your rights under the ADA. And it's important to be well versed in those, just from an advocacy standpoint as well. So always feel free to reach out and get more information to arm yourself with as well.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so with that, so what we're going to do is cover some resume pitfalls and kind of faux pas that I've noticed in cover letters and resumes. So with that, the first one being, as I mentioned earlier with cover letters, addressing the proper organization. In reading cover letters at USC, I get a chuckle every single time somebody puts, oh, I want to get a position at UCLA, or I want to get a position at Stanford. So what happens is that people are not checking their work, and they're probably just sending their resume to any university that'll take them. And so what I would advise you guys to do is to really double and triple check who you're addressing your resumes and cover letters to. Because what you don't want is an automatic disqualification because of that kind of a mistake, especially if the position you're applying for requires some sort of level of attention to detail. Let's just say if it's an admin assistant or executive assistant or an accounting position or any of these types of positions that require that level of attention to detail. Professional email addresses. Now, in the age of cell phones and tablets and all these technology things, I'm sure that a lot of us have more than one account. And so one thing that I would suggest, it's just merely a suggestion, is to create a professional email address. I know that for some people, they have these like kind of really like exotic, or like, Asian shy boy 55 at gmail.com or something like that. And although that might be cute, but you really want to showcase your professionalism. So having an email like sean.park at gmail.com, that's not my email address, but just to say that something like that is a little bit more professional and a little bit more I guess enticing for organizations. I mean, now if you're going for a position that's a little bit more creative in nature, then yeah, having that kind of an email might be okay. But yeah, you don't want to kind of turn the reader off by putting in an email address that might not be kind of professional. Okay, again, grammar, spell check, keeping tenses consistent, all these different things. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, so you want to make sure that all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and make sure all your tenses are great. All the margins are fine. I have a plus or minus one rule that I teach students is that, let's just say if your first position has, let's say, 5 bullets, right? So any of the other following positions should have no less than 4 and no greater than 6, because what you don't want to do is have, your most current positions front loaded with like, let's say 12 bullets, if you do use bullets, and all the rest of that 2 or 3. It would be nice to have a consistency. And so what you want to make sure is to make sure that your bullets are also just consistent, and you're just making sure that, you want to make sure you want to showcase the 4 or 5 or 6 bullets that are really going to you showcase the value add and what you could bring to the organization that you're applying for or to. Avoiding templates in Word. Yeah, this is another if I got $1 type of situation. And so although it's, Word templates are easy because they're just at your fingertips, it really doesn't showcase any kind of thought process. And so what you could do is, I'm sure that, I don't know if the Barnes & Noble is still there at the Americana, or if you go to your local public library, I'm sure they have tons of books with different templates. And so that's another way for you to really showcase yourself as a candidate, is to really have a resume that's, snazzy and really, eye appealing. And so I kind of liken it to a turkey versus a peacock. A turkey is good. I mean, it's good for like, sandwiches and Thanksgiving, but other than that, it's not a very pretty looking bird. Whereas a peacock, it's, has nice feathers and it's very alluring. And, so what you want to do is have that kind of peacock mindset to say, okay, I'm a beautiful bird, or, I have, all these beautiful feathers, come talk to me, and not be a gobble, 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 kind of turkey, whereas you're not, really useful except for meals. So, okay, so closing of, I'm sorry, any questions on that slide?
We had one that popped up that was, if we apply online and don't hear anything back, should we reapply?
I would say no, but in concert with your application, I would do some research online to see who, maybe some recruiters or some HR members. I know within higher education, we're notorious for having all of our directories online. So let's just say if you want to apply at a position at USC or UCLA, you can find pretty easily who the HR folks are. Whereas people like at Amazon or Google, or, they're a little bit more hidden. But if you have the right search terms in Google, or if you have the right connections, I'm sure you can find those types of people, and you can send an email to them saying, okay, my name is, I'll choose a couple of names, Morgan, or my name is Trisha, or my name's Helen, and I'm interested in this financial analyst position. I was wondering if, if you had a couple of minutes to talk, or, here are some, just 2 or 3 bullets to say, okay, this is why I'm a good candidate for this role. So that way, that could kind of spark the reader or the HR person to really look at your resume. So in the subject line of that email, if you do decide to go that route, make sure you put the requisition number and the title of the position, because I'm sure with recruiters these days, they don't just have one requisition that they're hiring for. So, to have as much information in that subject line would really help that person, and also showcase to the reader that, okay, I'm just not, applying for any old position, but I really want to work in your organization, right? So, good question.
And then we have one that's a little specific, but let's see your thoughts on it. So
Okay.
if I send a cover letter to a certain company and uploaded it to the company site, then I use the same cover letter, just change some details, will the first cover letter be affected by the second letter or anything like that?
Okay, so my follow-up question is it to the same organization and same position, or is it a different one?
It looks like the same company site. I'm not sure. It might be for a different position. It doesn't say.
Yeah, so I mean that's fine, as long, but make sure that if it is a different position, that you look at the top, let's say 3 or 4 bullet points, and really like go after, all the different things in your own kind of toolkit that apply to, those 4 bullet points, because usually the top 3 or 4 bullets are what the main, things or main responsibilities of the position are. So let's just say, I don't know, if you're a financial analyst, you're looking at spreadsheets, or, you're looking at amortization schedules, or you're doing these types of things. So you really want to, not copy and paste, but, take that information and just kind of synthesize it into your resume to say, okay, yeah, I have experience in this, and it matches what the company is looking for.
And
I hope
then
that answers your question. Oh, sorry.
yeah, and I just saw a follow-up that said also if it's a different company, because I think you talked earlier, right, about doing a different cover letter every time. So I think they're asking, if I change a few details, is that good? And I think you've answered that, but let me know if you wanted to add anything else to
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that's definitely a strategy that I would employ. But the way that Amazon hires their financial analysts might be different from, let's say, USC. So again, take a look at each job description as its own entity, its own separate thing, because just because it's a financial analyst at one organization might be totally different from another organization. Case in point, in banking, right? Banking is known for their kind of inflated titles. So if you see vice president of mortgage or something like that at let's say Bank of America or Chase or any of these other organizations, that's kind of inflated. So VP is usually like a manager level. So what you don't want to do is just say, okay, all financialists get the same resume. It's like, no. Because each organization, each kind of industry has their own leveling. And so what you don't want to do is just kind of have that kind of kind of focused kind of job search. What you really want to do is how you differentiate yourself is to really have that focused approach and to say, okay, I really want to work at Amazon. I'm sorry, I keep on saying Amazon and Google, but just those are the organizations that come to mind. I really want to work at Disney, right? So really showcase what they're looking for, especially with diversity, equity, inclusion. I mean, emotional intelligence, there's all these different terms that, if you read, like if you go into LinkedIn, there's tons of reading that you could do from the Harvard Business Journal or Harvard Business Review or the Wall Street Journal or, all these different organizations, or if there are more specific publications for your industry, that's something you really want to take a look at as well.
All right. And Sean, I see 2 more questions right now. I know we're running over time, but you had told us before you agreed to stay a little bit later, which is so generous.
Oh, yeah.
For anyone who does have to leave, I'm going to put some links for follow-up in the chat, but hopefully you can stick around. And let me ask the first one I saw, which is from Christopher. How does job relocation work? Say I wanted a position in New York, however, I live in California. How does that process work?
Ooh, thank you, Christopher, for that question. Yeah, it's kind of difficult, especially with these times of COVID. Typically, relocation happens for either situations where it's a tough to fill position, or it's for an executive. And so, yeah, it just depends on the organization too. And so what you could do is, if there is an organization you want, let's say if you want to work for the Mets, or if you want to work for, the Knicks, or I'm sorry to use sports, but if you want to work at a financial services firm in New York, just poke around their website to see if they have relocation policies. And also in doing your research for the organization, for HR folks, see if you could get their email address or send an email to them and see like what those looks like. So what I would do, Chris, is to take a legal pad and just start writing down every single every single position or company that you want to work for. You just kind of do a check off, as you're doing your research, and say, oh, this one does reload, this one doesn't, this one does. And so once you've exhausted that list, then you can have more of a targeted approach, going back to the sites and saying, okay, figuring out how they're in the news, or so that way you can showcase that in your cover letter, right? So, like when they ask you, oh, so, do you have any questions for us, Chris or Mr. Villanueva? And then you can say, oh, I read in this publication about this. Oh, can you talk about this? Or how does this position align with that kind of initiative or something? So that way, those are the types of questions that can really differentiate you as a peacock and not a turkey. So I hope that answers your question.
And then the next one is from Jenny. Can you please ask, oh, sorry. It's just Jenny's computer mic's not working. So I'll ask you, are companies looking at the past year, COVID, differently in terms of gaps in employment?
Yes, they are. And so I think that a lot of companies have shifted their paradigms as far as working from home, and especially in light of, a lot of people losing their position. And so what you want to showcase in your resume is the fact that there is a gap I mean, you don't have to put it in if you don't want to, but it might be good just to call it out to say, okay, well, or reason for leaving your previous employer, layoffs due to COVID, and then put that position or the lack of a position as your most recent position, and say, layoffs due to, or hiatus due to COVID or something like that. So that way people would be more understanding. But yeah, I hope that you find a position too soon. And I'm sure that if you guys go to the career center, that they would be able to help you, find a job too, or just kind of steer you the right direction as far as some ways for you to at least get interviews so they can get that ball rolling. Another thing that I could possibly want to throw out is if you guys have connections to temp agencies, because a lot of organizations, they don't really want to invest fully in because there are costs like, let's say, insurance and all these other things. So what they decide to do is just go the temp route and do a temp to perm. So that's an opportunity not only for the organization to kick your tires, but you could kick the organization's tires. And what I mean by that is you can kind of see, it's kind of like dating, where you're like, you're seeing if there's a match involved, and if because there are organizations like the ones that I mentioned, nauseum earlier, that where the name is great, but the atmosphere, the work environment is not that great. So, by doing a temp to perm or a temp kind of assignment, then you can kind of see how the things, how the organization runs, and see if it's an organization you can see yourself working at. So.
Awesome. And I see 3 more questions, Sean, at least right now. So let me go to the first. It was, is Indeed legitimate, and do employers really post their vacancies?
Okay, so for that, I can only speak about USC. What we do is we have an agreement with them such that Indeed and there's another job site that they scrape. What they do is they they go to our website and they take all of our positions and aggregate it into their own website. So let's just say you're on Indeed and you see this great position that you want to work at, and so what I would do is cross-check that to the actual organization's website. So that way, and then apply from there. Because, I mean, there have been such situations that I've heard where, people who have not been the most, honest, post fake positions, and then it goes into some sort of, temp agency or something to that effect, and then they create their buckets that way. So by doing the cross-checking and cross-referencing to the organization's website directly, then you're able to apply and do it that way, the correct way. So don't use Indeed as an end-all be-all, but more like a stepping stone to the actual applying to the actual position. And so, Shelby, if you don't mind, can I just go through the rest of my presentation and we can go through the rest of the questions, and that way, more people can apply, ask.
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. All right. This is great. So I'm really enjoying this time, and thank you for all your great questions. So yeah, so some of my closing advice. So job searching is a marathon, not a sprint. And so as I alluded to earlier with my lumberjack idea, what you want to do is just make sure that, that you're in this for the long haul and you get what you put into it. And so if you're doing, let's say, a couple of hours, especially if you're working a full-time job, job searching might not be the, the most, the greatest thing you want to do when you get home, or when you shut off your laptop at night. But, that's something that you really want to keep, in mind, is that it is a marathon. So you need to pace yourself. So if you hate your job, if you want to look for a new one, the tendency might be to, okay, full force, you're going all in on a job search. And then, a couple of weeks into it, you get so tired because you're not only, working on your other aspects of your life, but you're also, doing interviews and you're applying and other stuff. So yeah, just make sure you strike a balance between the two, because what I don't want you guys to do is just to burn out, because you're like, oh my gosh, this job search is so tough. I mean, I've applied to, let's say, 25 positions in the past couple of weeks, and I've got 0 responses, which is fine. I mean, it's common, but that's where you need to kind of sharpen your axe and just develop a different type of a cutting style or whatever the case may be, wear a different colored flannel shirt, whatever, whatever that will just kind of, make the experience a little different such that you can still keep on going. Okay, network. So it's not what you know, sometimes it's who you know. So the more people you kind of tell, especially, people within your circles, your friends, family, loved ones, relatives, neighbors, anybody that will listen, as long as they know that, that you're looking for a job, then definitely that would help. Okay, seek out a mentor within the field of choice. So if you want to see yourself as, let's say, I don't know, a financial analyst, or if you want to be a marketing, chief marketing officer at a, multi-million-dollar organization, see if you can find out somebody in that industry and or that kind of, field, in the marketing field or in the financial field, and see if you can, strike up a relationship or a friendship, a working relationship with them such that, oh, hey, can we have coffee or can we have lunch, my tree kind of a thing. And so that way, you can develop that kind of mentorship, because that's another way that they can, speak truth into your life and say, okay, well, what you've been doing is, if they're a good mentor, then they'll be able to, ask those tough questions. And rather than just kind of say, oh, why is he or she, like that? Just kind of understand that, they've been through the ropes, they've been through all these different situations and experiences. So they might be asking you under the guise of, they really want to help you. So I hope that you're able to have those types of relationships, because it's those types of building relationships that's very important, not only in a mentor-mentee kind of relationship, but in the working world. Because, like I said with earlier, it's your networking, it's the ability to have a widespread network as well. And then having a good support network. Again, with that lumberjack motif, just make sure that you have, a good best friend or a relative that you can talk to, because job searching will be tough. I'm not going to say it's easy. I went through an 8-month time of employment a few years ago. I mean, it was probably like 10 years ago. And wow, it was just draining. It was just so bad. But, I had a close support network at my church, of people that were praying for me and all these other things. So, I mean, not to say that, to throw religion into this, but, have a good network of friends or family to really, give you like, hey, Carolyn, hey, Morgan, hey, Jack, just keep on going. We're behind you 110%, kind of a thing, because it's that kind of help, like running a marathon race. You see like coaches running with them, say, hey, keep on going, you're doing great. So if you have that kind of support network, it'll definitely keep you going as well. And then again, seeking out the counselors and staff at GCC, because if you succeed, then they succeed, right? So I'm sure that a lot of them can attest to the fact that they're not in higher ed for the money, but definitely for the ability to help others. And that's the reason why I chose higher education as well. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about. Okay, and with that, Q&A, and thank you. So yeah, Shelby, if there are any other questions, please fire away.
All right, awesome, Sean. Thank you. And the next one was, do USC recruiters visit hyperlinks in the student's USC application, such as Linktree or LinkedIn?
Ooh. Yes, I mean, I would, but another thing is to make sure, and I know that, a lot of you guys are the younger generation with, TikTok and all these different websites. Make sure that you try not to put any kind of incriminating information, because I've seen this so many times, not only with myself, but with a lot of my recruiter friends, not only just USC, but other organizations, that we have this great candidate, but then once they go into doing their Google searches and finding people's TikToks or people finding their social media accounts, and they put, let's say, questionable material on there, that kind of takes them out of the running. And so you really want to make sure that you're putting in information onto your link trees and all these different things that are really professional. Because what I don't want to see is somebody emailing Shelby. It's like, oh, Shelby, I got this great, I've interviewed with Amazon and I was, the finalist, but I was, not moved on because of, some stuff that I put on social media. So yeah, just be careful, guys, because yeah, I don't want you guys to fall into that trap. And so, sorry, I just need to take a swig of water. So please bear with me for 1 second.
No worries. You've been doing a lot of talking for us.
Okay, thank you. All right, and also I'll turn on my camera. Okay, there we go. All right, and move my cup out of the way. Okay. All right, next question.
All right. So unless anybody has any more, this was the last one that I could see in the chat. Apologies if I missed any of yours, but I don't think I did. This was actually a follow-up to the relocation question. Is it okay to leave your address off of the resume? Like if you live here but want to work in New York, is that okay? Even if you're willing to pay the relocating costs yourself and don't want to be, treated differently as an applicant because of that?
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but the organizations that you would apply to probably would ask your address. So yeah, just be careful with that as well, because yeah, some organizations they do ask, some of them don't. So yeah, just make sure that you're forthright. It might be a ding or just a negative for you, but you want to be as forthright and honest as possible, because what I don't want you guys to do is to have your application withdrawn from the employer's side because of information that was incorrect or false. So
Awesome. Now I'm just saying thank yous in the chat. So I do want to thank you on behalf of all of our CE counselor team that put this together, for recruiting you, for having you spend your time with us. We recruited the recruiter and for answering all of these questions. I think more just thank you. Oh, wait, I see one. Wait for it. Someone said they're going to piggyback really quick on that question, maybe. Let me see. They might be typing it, or you can also come on mic if you wanted to. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So one more dimension to the resume question is, as a woman, I feel uncomfortable putting my address on a resume. Do you have any alternative options or suggestions in that case?
Well, especially in light of COVID, I'm sure that there are a lot of organizations that might kind of go away from having a requirement to have people be in the office. But yeah, if you do feel uncomfortable putting your address, that's totally fine. But just be cognizant that the organization might ask for it at some point. And so yeah, you just have to be ready for that kind of a situation if they do ask it. So
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording for our video for YouTube.